Hello everyone, this is CJNovo992 and today we're back for another brand new video, and today's task is to somehow put the frustration or the disappointment from Sunday to one side and turn our attention to European football as we face one of European's finest. And what I think is going to be the first ever European preview video, I'm going in with the mindset being, oh no. More on that as we get in to today's video, as it become pretty clear pretty quickly why that is the medallion. But before we even get to the Rangers end, however, which I imagine is going to be a mess today, as always, let's take a wee trip into the oppositional side of things and get an update on who we're playing in the next 24 hours, who at my current time of recording are a side that's sitting 4th in the old Serie A, and that is none other than Roma. Which you might hear and say, wait a minute, 4th? That sounds pretty exciting, CJ, actually, because they might be floundering about and everyone else is running away for them in the league. But again, that hope needs to immediately be dashed as Roma are sitting 4th. But do you know what separates 1st and 4th, ladies and gentlemen? 1 point. That's right, 1 point separates Napoli, Inter Milan, AC Milan and Roma. It must be nice to actually have exciting football and an exciting title race. Anyway, domestically, as you could probably expect from the build-up in today's video, they've done not too bad so far this season and they've looked pretty damn decent, and that's despite the fact that they have actually lost their most recent game of football, which was at the San Siro versus AC Milan, as Roma had the perfect opportunity to go tippity top of Italian football but missed that opportunity due to a narrow 1-0 loss versus AC Milan. In a game of football they not only missed a penalty in, by the way, but the penalty taker Diabalo also got injured whilst missing the penalty. And yeah, if you're ever going to lose a game, it's probably going to be in that type of scenario. But believe it or not, that's not going to be the only penalty drama Roma has faced this season. In fact, the longer you watch today's video, the more you hear it again and again and again. It is truly incredible for a side that used to get told to get loads of penalties. Well, we might be playing a side that genuinely gets loads and loads of penalties with very mixed outcomes in that. And again, I think that's where we'll go next, right? Because if you want to try and pick a hole in this Roma side or try and pull out a string to see any potential weaknesses in their team, believe it or not, it might be on the attacking aspect of the game, because not only was it highlighted in that 1-0 loss versus AC Milan, where again they missed a penalty kick, but they did miss some golden opportunities today, because again their overall play probably deserved to get something for the game, if not all 3 points, but their lack of attacking output did hurt them on that day. And again, if you look at the top floor in Italian football, and if you look at in terms of goals scored and who's scoring the most, Roma has scored the least out of the top 4, so you can look at it that way if you want. However, there is always balance to everything, and there is balance to this Roma side, because yes, where they have scored the least amount of goals out of the top 4, they lack in the attacking aspect, they make up in the defensive, because as cruel as it is, we are playing the side with the best defensive record in Italian football, and they lead that way pretty drastically as they conceded just 5 goals all season long. What's really interesting about them domestically, if you really want to dive in, if you look at how they go and how they operate on a week-to-week, game-to-game basis, for the last time this squad that we play in the next 24 hours conceded more than 1 goal on Italian soil was way back in the 12th of May. Ladies and gentlemen, aye, to say this team doesn't concede many goals is an understatement, as that back door is well protected. But I'll be honest with you, I'm going to move away from the domestic stuff, because truthfully, the more you look at it, the more scary it actually becomes, because I'm going to leave the domestic stuff in the rear view and look to European football, because if you feel like it's going to be all doom and gloom, you're actually mistaken, because somehow, some way, Roma, who is this force so far this season, is almost the opposite on the European stage, as Roma come into this game versus Rangers sitting 23rd in the table. Yeah, they're not at the top 8, they're not flying high, they're not winning games for fun. They sit in 23rd with only 1 win out of 3 games with 2 other losses to boot. How's this happening? Well, let's me and thee try to get the bottom of it then, shall we? Because Roma started off the Europa League campaign looking like their domestic selves, you know what I mean? Strong with possession, created chances, and they were very, very comfortable for the majority of the game, as their opening game was versus Nice, and they were 2-0 up. Now, they did concede a penalty kick in the game of football, and that was the only way their back door was breached on that day. However, everyone's coupon was saved as Roma was able just to calm the game down despite the late penalty. More penalty stuff regarding this team, and they held on to keep the 2-1 win and start off the Europa League the way everyone was expecting. But that was all soon to change in their very next game versus Lille, another French side. You had the high-flying Roma side looking pretty damn good, but it was almost completely undone as they fell behind in the game of football. But yet again, Roma's a good team, so they're creating opportunities, and around about the 81st minute of the game, they get given a penalty kick. One penalty kick, and if Dubravka ends up stepping up, ends up missing it. Well, I should say it was a very, very good save by the goalie, but it was encroachment, ladies and gentlemen, as the defender who encroached was the one that stopped Dubravka from slapping in the rebound and maybe possibly scoring a goal. That's the new rules regarding encroachment. As long as it's the guy interfering with play encroaches, then it's a penalty retake. So Roma, who missed the penalty, get a second opportunity to right the rain and get back into the game of football. The big striker steps up again. It goes the same side, but the goalie dives the same way to make it a second penalty save in the last 1 minute of football. And if you think, well, that's a bit of penalty drama, well, that's very, very interesting. Believe it or not, something else happened as again there was a VAR, as this time there was near encroachment. This time the goalie jumped off his line early and was off it, so there was a third retake of a penalty. Now Dubravka went ahead and missed twice, so yeah, he was at the back of the queue, you know what I mean? He was trying to hide everything about him because he couldn't handle taking it again. So another player stepped up to take it, and this time he looked a lot more comfortable. He opened the body up, he rattled it the other way, but the goalie read that as well for the third penalty save in the last 2 minutes of football. And I think it's fair to say, ladies and gentlemen, if you miss not one, not two, but 3 penalties in a game, you deserve to lose. And that's what happened, ladies and gentlemen, as the ultimate coot buster happened, and Roma lost versus Lille thanks to 3 missed penalties. Never in all my grey days have ever seen anything like that. And truthfully, as the belief in the faith and the belief in the confidence faded after each and every single penalty miss, you may as well have blew the full-time whistle after that third miss, because they knew in their heart of hearts it just wasn't their day. They looked broken and shell-shocked, so it finished that way. Igamani did play in that game as well, by the way, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Right, that's a loss, and it's another game of football in which they've missed a penalty kick and lost. Circling back to earlier on in the video regarding their most recent game, which was AC Milan. But that pattern isn't there throughout their entire season, because in their very next game, ladies and gentlemen, their third Europa League game, their most recent Europa League game, they played a familiar foe to Rangers this season in terms of Victoria Pilsen, and in that game of football, Roma got another penalty, because of course today, nearly every single game they've had a penalty this season, but this time they stepped up and scored the penalty kick. Dybala went up, scored on that game, gave them an opportunity which was all fine and dandy, apart from the fact that by the time they had scored the penalty, they were already 2-0 down to Victoria, ladies and gentlemen, and that's how the game finished. No matter how much they huffed or puffed, they could not blow that Czech house down, as Victoria ended up beating them. So that's their journey, that's the pathway to Rangers Football Club. That's the story so far for Roma, and to say it's been interesting is genuinely an understatement. They've been very, very good overall, but fine margins and missed penalty kicks away from being absolutely perfect in the season. But I'm absolutely delighted they're no that way, and I'm delighted for those fine margins, you know what I mean, because at least it gives me something, even 1.1% of me can cling on to tomorrow, that maybe, just maybe, because the rest, yeah, it's heavily in favour of Roma. I understand that, but again, you've got to take your wins and take your losses when you get them. I'd like some wins. That would be very, very nice. But regarding the old Roma side, regarding their playstyle, which way do they line up? Interestingly, they line up very similar to what we've been playing recently, and that's the 3-4-3 we line up in. They normally go into like a 3-4-2-1. It's kind of described on paper, where the 2 wingers are actually played more as 10s, and that's sort of to really bring out the best of Dybala, because Dybala Dybala's not a striker, he's not a winger, he's usually sort of floating in between, and they've worked their system and they've worked their formation to really suit him. But what's interesting again about this game is he's injured, ladies and gentlemen, or apparently ruled out of the game, as the manager doesn't expect Dybala to be back till after the international break. And if all that is true, then it certainly should suggest it's advantage to Rangers. But again, at the same time, man, the way we got our pants pulled down for SK Brand for their third choice striker after their best player was ruled out, and we're here talking about Roma Football Club, you know what I mean? If Dybala doesn't play, they'll just play their £38 million striker instead of him, right? And if they didn't want to play him, or if they're already playing him at a different position, if they really want to attack this back line, a Rangers Football Club, they'll maybe just dip in and pick up the likes of Leon Bailey, who at one point cost £38 million and will probably be one of the fastest players we'll ever see, especially these days right now. Imagine his pace running at our backline, whether that's on the right hand side where he does primarily play, especially during his time for Aston Villa, running at young Jadon at that back line, or if he fancies running at Tavernier down the right, then there is a clear pathway in there. That's a wee bit scary. But again, they've even got other further weapons that didn't even always start. You've got the likes of Pellegrini, one of their better attacking players. That's an Italian internationalist that pulls strings and scores goals. He's already scored a screamer this season. He might come in to the game of football and strut about and show why Man City has been sniffing around him for the last 2 seasons, but he's not wanting to go anywhere, so he's no left. So to sort of suggest or say, oh, Dybala's out, there you go, Rangers are really, really lucky. Oh, look at the bag of riches they've got, look at the talent they've got. Dybala's a boost, but there's enough scares out there. They're not a one-man team, and that's sad to say. And to finish up the old video, ladies and gentlemen, it's fair to say that Roma is by far the best team I've looked at and broke down this season. You know what I mean? I would even say they're better than Club Brugge. Where Club Brugge were built mere to attack, absolutely, and we unfortunately seen the side of that. You're talking about overall as a football team, you're talking about position for position. You're looking at the values of these players, 20, 30 million, 20, 30 million, 40, 50 million, 60, 80 million. You can go through their team and it goes up and up and up. It is the best team we'll probably play this season. Sorry to any potential Porto fans that might be watching today's video, and that is a scary, scary prospect, especially considering where we are and who pulls on the Rangers jerseys these days. They're a top side littered with top talent when they are truly on it, but again in the European stage, when they've shown that their full focus isn't exactly on it and they're at that level, they can give chances away. And where the teams have snatched at those opportunities and not exactly dominate the game but took their chances, the question then becomes, will Rangers be good enough, or will the players be good enough to take the chances that Roma might give us in tomorrow's game? I guess we'll find out by the time the full-time whistle goes. Still kind of whistle. Still kind of whistle. Come on! But that's us done and dusted speaking about the Roma side. Let's get to the Rangers end then, shall we? And where do we start? Ladies and gentlemen, you know what I mean? Do we grab a shovel? Do we try and dig back up the frustration and the disappointment that was Sunday? Or do we leave it buried and try to move on? You know what I mean? I think it's got a wee bit of a mixture, because I look at overall Sunday in terms of what we could have controlled. I'm not want to talk to the officials or referees. We know what they are, right? We know how bad they are at their jobs, right? I'm not want to talk about. I'm talking about in terms of our players' perspective, the way we battled through with 10 men, the way we took that to extra time, despite going down even in extra time, still creating another 1v1. I think in terms of our performance, you can see something for the team, but again, where I am proud of the way they battled through all the adversity they went ahead and faced, I can't sit here and pretend there's no also that itchy frustration, ladies and gentlemen. Why does it take us having our backs against the wall for them to play that way? Why do we need to get chucked in the trenches before this team starts to fight? Why can't we start games of football with the same work rate, commitment and intensity? Do we always need to go 10 men? Do we always need to go behind? Do we always need to be getting battered in a game for this team to wake up and start playing football? I would love, and I would personally love to see this team realise that if they start games the way they played for over 90 minutes down to 10 men versus Celtic in a semi-final, then they'll be a much, much better side, and they'll get much, much better results, and they'll rebuild that faith and rebuild rebuild that trust for the fans if they actually started games like that. Because they've shown us now that they can actually reach that level and maybe start looking like a Rangers team, you know what I mean? Because for the majority, what this squad has shown us, let's just be blunt, let's not go through any nonsense, they've shown that they're spineless. Troops, and when things get hard, they've absolutely crumbled. We've been embarrassed in Europe. Some of the results, especially at Ibrox this season in terms of the league, has been embarrassing. So you start to burn and be like, well, they're spineless. Well, they've no got it in them. Well, they'll never, ever make it. But then you see wee glimpses like that. Then you see them grab games. Then you see them roll their sleeves up. You be like, is there something in this team? But again, where they'll actually be judged is no the one-off unlucky loser storylines being second best. Again, that doesn't mean nothing to us as fans, but what they could do is maybe use that as a foundation to build on and start being like, look, you can do it, drill that in up there, look what you can achieve, man, just start games like that. Now, I know it's a very, very tough ask to ask them to go out there and play against this Roma side, especially with the rotations you're expecting the players to be brought back in. But just show me something for the game of football, right? You're against a top side versus Roma. You're expected to lose. So that pressure of needing to win is almost off you. Go out there and play and show us what you can do and get stuck in. Do the same intensity, do the same commitment you shown on Sunday, and maybe you'll get some, because Victoria didn't deserve to win that game versus Roma, but you know what they done? They worked their absolute arse off versus Roma. They threw their bodies on the line. They rode their luck at times, absolutely, but they worked hard for it, and they outworked Roma. Remember the old saying we used to say on the exact opposite when we drop points in Scottish football? Hard work can beat talent when talent doesn't work hard enough. Well, look at the Lille game. Look at the Victoria game. And then just take something for that, man, coming in this one, and just try to outwork them and see if you can grab something in the game of football. That's my thoughts and opinions in it. And again, it's not as maybe positive as previous years where I always fancied us in the European stage and always fancied us to back in it against anybody, because I've seen us beat Dortmund, you know what I mean? I was there in Germany, I was there in all these places watching the team, believing we could go into the game, and where that belief is really hammered down. Football can change so damn quickly, and your output and outlook can change really quickly, but it's got to start with these players on the park pulling the socks up and showing some consistency, because that's not what they've shown all season long. And I believe, ladies and gentlemen, if we play, again, not necessarily go down to 10 men, of course, but if we play with the same appetite we done on Sunday, then we've got a chance of getting sun for the game of football. But again, it's all down to these players if they're actually able to show that in back-to-back games, and it's not just a one-off and then they're going to be taking 5 games off and sleepwalking through games now. It's a perfect opportunity for these players to show the Rangers fans sun and start to rebuild that trust and rebuild that faith that is gone. Because again, if you look at it on paper, and if you want to be blunt about this Rangers team, we talked about Roma sitting 23rd and everything like that. We're 36th out of a 36 team league, and we've played Genk, Sturm Graz and SK Brand. No logic at all should suggest that we then take some out the best team we'll play in terms of Roma. But again, football can be very, very unpredictable, and especially this team can be. So just give us sun. That sun being a performance the fan base can at least see we tried and gave our best, rather than what we've felt the last couple European games, where again, as a collective, I dare to say we've been humiliated on the European stage. And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I'm going to say about the game of football. We know how up against that we are right now, but we've shown that sometimes when we do our best stuff, it's when all the pressure's on us to win, this team crumbles. Can they come out fighting and scrapping? Maybe, troops, maybe. I guess we'll find out, even though it doesn't necessarily look good 24 hours before a game. You just never know. But I'm going to move away from there, because I imagine if I don't speak about the statement, people's going to be coming for my head and shouting me, asking me why I'm no. What's my thoughts on Rangers releasing a statement basically suggesting or summing up that they're dissatisfied with some of the answers they were given as they went and spoke to the SFA. They had spoke to the referees and everything, and the answers they gave for the decisions they made weren't satisfactory to Rangers, and they feel like they want to do this and they want to do this and they want to improve Scottish football. They'll continue to monitor all this stuff. See, for me, and I know this might not be exactly what you want to hear, I just thought the statement in itself was sort of a nothing burger. You know what I mean? I had the buns, but there's none in between, because we've heard that we've been dissatisfied, we've been heard we're going to be working, we're going to be heard we're doing all this. There was no call for action, there was no actual substance to the statement at all. I just read it, glanced at it, and didn't even make a video on it, because for me, there was nothing there. Now, I know some people say, well, we voiced our concerns, we brought it out there, and we made it a public issue, we weren't happy, and that's what the club can do, and if you're happy with that, it's fair enough, but I just think we done that last year. You know what I mean? Mind with the Cherny stuff, and we were robbed a penalty in that game of football, and they had to come in and be like, well, it should have been a penalty kick. What did that change? No, the very next high-profile game versus Celtic in a cup competition, again, another referee howler happened. So the wee statements didn't do nothing for me. Again, what I'd have liked to have personally seen is maybe a call for action in terms of another review of Scottish football, or maybe suggest some troops, and this might sound completely daft, and I might get absolutely laughed at here, but I think like Fenerbahce and Galatasaray, their rivalry is everything to them. Do you know what they do for their games? They bring in referees for elsewhere that's not got any ties to the teams, no ties to the country, none. They bring in referees elsewhere to officiate the game on a neutral basis and just let the two teams battle out. Now again, that might sound like a ridiculous thing to suggest, but is it not at the point where Rangers and Celtic are so big and so important to Scottish football that maybe we could do something like that and just bring officials elsewhere and bring them for this game? Because if it can happen in Turkey, and I believe it happens in another country, I've completely miffed it right now, it can't happen in Scotland. That's all. There's wee things we could do or things we could suggest, but all we seem to do, ladies and gentlemen, is go, we're very unhappy about this. That doesn't do nothing. And again, going into the officials from elsewhere, bringing them in for the game of football, if it can work in Turkey with the toxic atmosphere and the atmosphere it is over there, it should be able to work up here, because believe it or not, it's not just Rangers fans that aren't happy with Nick Walsh and aren't happy with the referee. So if Celtic aren't happy, if Celtic fans aren't happy with the refs, and we're not happy with the refs, would the simplest solution to be like, no, just go and get other refs in, rather than the same tried and failed refs? Would that not be the simplest, cleanest resolution to everybody, and it should appease everybody? I think it could be up there, but maybe I'm just being daft and being silly to expect Scottish football to keep up with the rest of the leagues and treat their biggest game the same way Turkish football does and Italian football does. But hey, it's just me, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe I'm being daft, and Scotland should remain in the dark ages and behind everybody else. So again, that's just my simplistic point of view, maybe looking at it daftly. If they're unwilling to change and they won't change, suggest a change for them. And again, if both fan bases are unhappy, then that should appease everyone, because the officiating is absolutely shocking in this country. But that's my thoughts on opinions on it, ladies and gentlemen. Now getting back to this game of football, thankfully there's no fresh injury concerns or anything like that, so it should be all good, ready to go. Now there might be a wee bit of narrative out there about having tired legs and tired that after what they gave on Sunday, but again, maybe I'm just being too harsh these days. But if you in your heart of hearts can't get up and get your level up there and get your adrenaline running for a home game under the lights at Ibrox versus Roma, then these players genuinely shouldn't be here. Imagine the big conversation point is going to be the striking position again, as Chermati had major misses after his cheeky little remarks after Kilmarnock when the goalie threw one in for the laddie. But again, I imagine it will be Chermati, and I'm getting a wee bit worried about his continued selection, by the way, because it might circle back to something we talked about regarding the managerial searches, who's making the decisions right there. You know what I mean? Bojan's not been great, absolutely no, but I do feel confident in saying that I think he'd at least hit the target for the two chances we created. I'm not saying he's scoring, because he's not shown that goal-scoring form just yet, but I feel like we are bringing him into games when we do change, or when the game's getting lost. I'd like to see our best team with Bojan at least given an opportunity to create chances and to see what the laddie can do, because we've seen what our best team creating chances can do for Chermati. We've saw the outcome. Can we see that with Bojan? That's all I can suggest, sorry, but aye. If he's picked again, ladies and gentlemen, then I'm going to start getting nervous that Kev's got a bit better control than we all want to admit. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. That's all I've really got to say about the game. Again, on paper, it is certainly suggests we'll lose the game. But again, I just want to see a performance for the team and give us something to believe in, you know what I mean? You look at their European form, they go beat Victoria, we beat Victoria. Can we not take son for that and fancy our chances if we start well and play well, man? That's all I'm thinking for the game of football. Regarding the starting 11, I imagine it will be pretty much identical. I'll go with Butland. I think it will be Tav. Again, it'll be Giga, I imagine, in the game of football. Suter, Cornelius, Jaden. I imagine the midfield will be Raskin, possibly Diamandi, and again, although he did run his race possibly at the weekend, but wee Barron could come back in, which would probably be my way. I'll go with Raskin and Barron, if I'm honest. Then you're looking at the left-hand side, and for me, I'm going to keep this one pretty damn obvious in my personal opinion. I think Mikey Moore deserves to start. He really does now, and that's an incredible turnaround. That's how quickly, again, football can turn around. Ride the hot hand. Mikey Moore's hot right now. He's firing right now. Start him in this game of football. On the right, I'd keep Danilo, and then up top, I'd give Bojan an opportunity. That's just what I'd do. Let me know what you'd do down in the old comment section below. Regarding the prediction, I'm going to go a score draw, possibly a 1-1, as again, Roma doesn't concede too many goals, but again, it could go badly wrong, it could go right. Guess which one I'm hoping for it to go? I'll go a score draw though, cheeky 1-1, try and get us off the board, just give us sun as a fan base. We can look and be like, oh, Sunday wasn't a one-off in terms of the performance. Then actually get a result for it. That's all I'll say. What about you? Let me know your opinions down there in the old comment section below. And as always, shout out the legends that are signed up to the channel legend memberships. We greatly appreciate you. And as thank you to those that are signed up to the supporter range, and to each and every single person that has tuned in to this video and watching these videos and helping us on our journey to hopefully reaching 70k. Hopefully I've done enough to earn that like and earn that subscription if you haven't subscribed already. If no, I'll try and get it in the next video. And until then, which will be another late upload and everything like that by the time I get here and do the filming and everything like that. Hopefully it's a smile. Just give me a smile on my face at least. But aye, until then, I've been CJ992. Thank you so much for watching. All the best and bye bye.